Good evening, everyone. Happy to be here with you all. This is the Link family. Thank you for joining us, and thank you to those joining us on YouTube. Today, we'll be talking about the art of blending families. The last time we spoke about blended kingdom families with our sister taking the lead. That's our sister Tolani Jemi-Alade, and she's with us today, and she'll be continuing from where she stopped. And so I'll just be handing over to her shortly.
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you. So do you want to give us a summary of what we are going to talk about today before we go into business?
Sure. Hi, everyone. It's a
Okay.
pleasure to be here once again. I'll just do a recap of what we discussed the last time. We talked about blended families, blended kingdom families, like you rightly highlighted, and just the peculiarities of, blended families in the context of, kingdom and Christianity. Two couples or a couple bringing children that are not their biological children into the relationship, into a marriage relationship. And I mean, the different, dynamics of that is what we discussed at the last meeting. And I mean, we went through the definitions and different biblical examples that, we could come up with. And today we'll be looking at the art of blending families. Because, I mean, you would agree with me that following our last conversation, um, coming into a marriage with children or, looking after children that are not biologically yours, comes with its own, dynamics and peculiarities. So we're going to be diving right into that tonight. What we need, the ingredients we need, to successfully blend the family. So just bear with me whilst I project my screen whilst I share my screen. I'm not sure I've been enabled.
I've just done so.
Right, okay. Hold on, please. Can you see my screen?
Not yet.
So what's going on there?
Okay, we can see it now.
Right. Okay. So tonight we're going to be looking at the art of blending families. Why are we blending families in the first place? Why is there an art required? Like we mentioned at the last meeting, in a traditional family, man and woman get married, and I mean they start to have children. It's a process, it's a journey, it's gradual, and some things are innate. It's permits me to use the word automatic in most circumstances. I mean, of course, we have some unusual circumstances where there are challenges here and there, but I mean, it's almost natural that, man and woman get married and, they start to have children and they start to learn, the ropes as they go along. But in a blended family situation, there's usually, I mean, there's some level of growth and development that has happened already, right? So you're pretty much, coming into the picture midway through a process. Things have happened and transpired before man meets woman, boy meets girl, and falls in love. They have a history, they have, a child or children, they have values, traditions, experiences that they're bringing into that relationship. I mean, in the secular world, we call it baggage, but hey, Definitely not, baggage. I call it blessings instead, because I mean, like with everything else, it comes with its, challenges that you have to walk through. So I would start by saying that every blended family is unique. Like with traditional families, no two family is the same, right? And what that means is that you're going to have to, for anybody in a blended family situation that would be in a blended family situation, you would have to understand the peculiarity of your own situation. And while there are principles that are applicable irrespective of the uniqueness and peculiarity, which we'll be discussing, it's important to know that um, you cannot compare your blended family to another person's blended family. If you look at practical examples, I mean, a man is, widowed and he's getting married to a woman who doesn't have any children of her own. That's a blended family situation. You certainly cannot compare it with a woman who had children, right, who's getting married to a man who didn't have any child of his own before they got married, or a couple who have children of their own, but they've decided to take an extended, family relative's child, to live with them, an adopted child, like we went through last week. So again, it's important to note that there's a uniqueness in every situation, and every situation needs to be looked at, with its own merits. However, the principles and dynamics, the principles are the same. So we're going to look at some of those principles. How do we blend families? How do we blend families? These words might look like a cliche. We've heard it several times, even with traditional relationships, whether it's a marriage relationship, a sibling relationship, a work relationship. But in a blended family situation, I would like to emphasize that these are even more important. I mean, it's important in most situations, but it's particularly important in a blended family situation. I'll start by looking at presence. What do we mean by presence? Remember, we're talking about the art of blending families, and in the average blended family, there is you're bringing in, right? You're coming with things that have existed in the past or were prior to the relationship coming together, prior to a new marriage, being formed, prior to a new family unit being established. And there is so much possibility that you can, even though there is a marriage and there's a relationship between man and woman, it's so easy to be present, to be in that situation, but not present in the situation. What do I mean by that? If a man or woman already has children, it's one thing to be married to that person, is another thing to be present in the life of the child, the life of, the children that the man or woman is bringing into the marriage. You have to be very intentional about having a present, about being present and wanting to be present. For some, okay, I try not to generalize. It's very easy to look at, the marriage and focus on the person you're married to without, paying attention. Or sometimes people are very careful. They don't want to they don't want to interrupt, or they don't want to barge into an already established relationship, and in the process, they don't have a presence. They become they're just onlookers, which shouldn't be the case. And of course, I will talk about how to navigate this presence as well, because it's a double-edged sword. You also don't want to you want to do it, carefully and, over time. And of course, patience is critical. It's not automatic. You won't get, into a relationship today and, everything is all nice and smooth the next day. Patience is very important. Remember, we are blending, and the process of blending, if you look at blending in general terms, right? There's a process, and it requires a lot of patience. Knowledge, I cannot overemphasize the importance of knowledge. I mean, you cannot understand what you do not know, right? So whilst there is like I said earlier, there's a marriage and the two couple, probably know themselves. There are other parts of that, marriage, of the relationship, that you also have to spend time knowing. You have to, make it a point of duty to know the children, to know each other, to understand, the dynamics of your family relationship. Kindness is critical. You compromise. I cannot overemphasize the importance of compromise as well. Even more in this situation, compromise is key. We find that a lot of the time, because the couple, the individuals coming into the marriage already are set in their ways, or they've done things that have worked for them in the past. It's so important to understand that in a blended family situation, compromise is the order of the day, right? You would have to bend over backwards and compromise even more than you would in a traditional family situation. And of course, sacrifice. I think it's important to emphasize sacrifice here, because remember, you're dealing with children who are not necessarily your biological children. So there will be more requirement to sacrifice. So let me talk about women. Women are, innate motherly instincts. You typically sacrifice for your children, almost naturally. Now, in a blended family situation, you have to go the extra mile to sacrifice, just because that child is not yours, and or you're worried that, okay, if I do all of this and this child is not mine at the end of the day, what's going to happen? The honest truth is, if you're not applying the principle of sacrifice, it will not help in blending the family. And of course, intentionality, all of these things that we've highlighted, it's only possible when you're intentional about it. I want to talk about the couple. Now, in a blended family situation, the couple are in love and have spent time together. The children in the mix, however, are not in love, and they haven't spent as much time together, right? And this is usually a challenge for, blended family situations. The two people, the man and the woman, love each other, they know each other, and you automatically expect the children, to feel the same way, or to latch on to the relationship, or to embrace the idea of becoming family. It takes time. They are not in love with each other, right? They're not in love with you. They're probably not in love with the other step sibling that is going to come into the mix. So what this says, and what this should say to a couple in a blended family situation, is you're going to have to give it much more time, right? With traditional families, a sibling is born and the other sibling is already a part of the family. You're there from day one, maybe from pregnancy. You see the process, right? And you're looking forward to it. You're excited. This child is not a stranger. It's not being brought from somewhere else. But in a blended family situation, that's not the case, right? And you would agree with me that, love and bonds are formed with time, right? So for people in blended family situation, or looking to go into a blended family situation, it's so important and critical to have this at the back of their minds, right? There's sometimes a bit of resistance, especially at the beginning, or even if not properly managed, a lifelong resistance, because, this phase is not properly managed well. I've said also that the children are not in love with each other. The sibling bond is not automatic. So intentionality is very important. Very, very important. How is intentionality, how is that achieved? Again, I will talk about that, as we go along. It's a lifelong journey. Every stage has its and requires its own dynamics. So in a blended family situation, there are stages. Of course, there's the forming stage, there's the bonding stage, there's the storming stage, and each of these stages has its own dynamics. However, the principles I highlighted at the beginning are applicable in all these stages. The very, very first thing that should be noted and paid attention to is time. Time again. At the very beginning, you need time to understand each other. You need time to learn each other. You need time to invest into building a bond. I will now talk about the actual principles that it should be adopted if we're looking to, achieve success, lifelong success in blending families. I'll start by talking about the parenting role. In parenting, there's usually two sides. There's a disciplinarian and a bystander. When there is, when you have a child from a previous relationship, it's advised that the parent of that child should be the disciplinarian in the parenting role. Again, I can take questions on that later. I know this also is based on people's personalities, but again, experience and research has proven that this is a better posture. Again, because remember, you're bringing a child into a new environment, and if discipline is not properly managed, sometimes it is seen as, abuse is seen as, okay, this man doesn't like me, this woman doesn't like me. It's not taken well. So it is advised that even when so if it's the man who didn't have the child or the woman who has a child and he notices something, she notices something, it's best you advise and talk to the other party, to the biological parents. Of course, I mean, this is not a hard and fast rule. However, it is recommended that, that is the case. The two parties can be disciplinarians. One must be a bystander and the other is disciplinarian. Of course, with one voice. There also has to be household rules, very important. I cannot overemphasize the importance of this household. As cliche as it may sound, in a blended family situation, it's important that rules are set and schedules are, the responsibility has to be clear. Very, very, very important. Again, we don't want situations where one child is feeling like the other parent is, witch hunting or making them do all of what, they shouldn't be doing, or making them do what, or they're not doing what they should be doing, and vice versa. Or, the couple, the man or the woman in the situation feels like, oh, you're making my child do more than your child. So, from the very beginning, it's important that the rules are set, it's transparent, everybody's assigned a responsibility, so there is clarity. I would also want to talk about family values. Family values are very important. Remember that there are values that were maybe consciously or unconsciously imbibed before this new family unit was created. Remember that we have two families, so there were two existing families, whether they were married or not, whether it was from a single parent situation or an adopted child situation, or a marriage, where a spouse was lost situation. It was a family. Once there is an adult and a child, then it's a family, right? And these two families are coming together to form one new unit, right? One new unit, one family. So it's not my family against yours, or this is how we used to do it, and then we'll continue to do it this way. No, it's now this is how we do it, right? So it's important that these new values are listed and prioritized. Very, very important. Now, with traditional families, whilst these things are part of the dynamics of the everyday life in family.
Don't talk about
Blended family situations, because it's a little bit more sensitive, right? And there are more factors, there are more things to consider, there are more emotions to manage, right? There are more peculiarities to deal with. Then you have to be a lot more intentional. Perhaps you would get away with not having these values listed or maybe discussed in a traditional family situation, or maybe traditionally the man is determining what happens, or again, just depends on the situation, maybe the woman, but they are agreeing and they're happy with it. In a blended family situation, you're coming into a situation, sorry, you're bringing existing practices, existing principles, existing tendencies into this new unit. So it's important that these things are agreed, right, from the get-go. And as you journey along, you go back to the drawing board and constantly review and reevaluate the situation. Then principles of the relationship. This is applicable in any other relationship, but again, in a blended family situation, it is so important, especially openness and honesty, right? Communication is key, very, very important. Nothing can be achieved without communication. All these things that we have listed and the other ones we're going to talk about is all riding on communication, right? We must desire to communicate with each other. We must be intentional about communicating with each other. It's something I'm trying to think of, trying to say right now. So conflict avoidance is not a strategy. Not talking about it is not a strategy. We must bring it to the table, especially openness and honesty. So in a blended family situation, there's the tendency that, sometimes we hold back information, not because you want to be dishonest or you want to hide information, but you probably don't know how, it to be taken, or you're trying to protect your child, or you're trying to protect the other spouse. Anything you don't talk about and you're allowed to fester over a period of time, it doesn't always go the right way. Of course, approach is important, timeliness and timing is important, but honesty is so key. Openness is very important. Of course, equity and fairness. You have different children in the mix, right? So it's important that each child is treated with fairness. Very, very important. I'm sure there are people on this call and people who have had horrible experience, very terrible experiences with step parents, because there was unfair treatment, right? You cannot have a real family if there is no fairness. Yes, we might say, as human beings, sometimes you have the tendency to be maybe a bit partial with your own, but in a blended family situation, it's not allowed. It's not something that should be practiced at all. Now, if it is something that you're struggling with, you're going to ask God to help you. And of course, setting boundaries. We must set boundaries. Especially in situations where there's maybe the other spouse from the previous relationship is still around. So a divorce situation, for example, we must set boundaries. Those boundaries are very important. This is what is allowed. This is what is required. This is what should be done. This is how it should be done. Those boundaries are very critical, and those boundaries have to be set together, right? So the man is not setting a boundary without carrying his wife along, his spouse along. The woman is not setting a boundary without carrying a spouse along, especially for the children in the mix, right? So setting boundaries are very, very important. Rather, co-creating boundaries are critical. Family time is something that we also have to be intentional with blended families. I said earlier that the children are not in love, right? They haven't spent as much time together. as the couple have, and the couple, would probably continue to spend time together. Now, we have to be very intentional. Remember that you have children that have spent time with either the man or woman before they came into this new family unit, right? We're going to have to be intentional with spending time. If you have children that are living with a former spouse or in school or in another household, we have to be deliberate with spending time as a family. Now, if you're the spouse in that situation, you also have to be deliberate about spending time with the children as individuals. Of course, traditions are also very important. We must embrace existing and incorporate new. What does embrace existing tradition mean? So if for example, Christmas was spent at grandmother's or grandfather's house every year before you got married to each other. Then, we can agree that we would spend alternative Christmas. So this Christmas will be spent with Grandma A. Next Christmas will be spent with Grandpa B. The third Christmas will be spent in a resort. So again, we have to be desirous of maintaining, embracing existing traditions. Of course, this has to be discussed. I'm not talking about traditions that would jeopardize the unity of the family and, not encourage the blending. But we have to look at these things and not be dismissive of it. Yes, I mean, these things happened before the two people got married, but it has been a part of the life of either the man or woman and the children coming in. So it's important that, we're not dismissive about it. We're not, we pay attention to it and, we give it, attention and we look at it and try to encourage it, where we can, try to incorporate it into what is going to be done moving forward. Prayers are so, so important. We are fairly religious people. I would imagine Christian, Muslims. I believe we're all Christians. Well, if we're Muslims, if we have Muslims on this call, that's fine. But the importance of prayer is critical. We must pray together. This may sound like something we all know, but prayer is a very important bond that keeps it all together. We must pray for each other, and for each of the adults in that relationship, you must pray for yourself, asking for the grace that is required, because there's a grace required. You have to ask for that grace, the grace, to know what to do, when to do it, how to do it at all times. Join support groups. A traditional family is not a blended family. A blended family is not a traditional family. The advice that a man or woman in a traditional family setting will give you may not be suitable in a blended family situation, right? You must find the right support, from people who have similar, of course, like I said at the beginning, a unique, every blended family is unique in itself. But believe you me, the dynamics are different from a traditional family. So let me give you an example. In a traditional family situation, if the man is this, permit me to use the word breadwinner, and is a sole provider, right? And is able to meet all the needs of his household, right? In a blended family situation, the woman may not, the man may not be able to do that because he has, this woman is bringing children from another marriage. So she may have to contribute, right? And vice versa. The dynamics of every marriage is different. I'm not here to advise people on how to apportion their finances, their marriage. I'm just saying that if you compare a traditional family and a blended family, get advice from somebody who's in a traditional family situation and you're in a blended family situation, it may not work, right? However, if you find other people in blended family situation, they're able to help you to navigate the peculiarities of being in a blended family, right? Inclusivity is something else that I want to highlight and quite important when blending families. We must be open to accommodating family members from prior relationships, grandparents from exes, siblings from exes, friends from exes, and so on and so forth. Of course, this is not a hard and fast rule, right? It's not a hard and fast rule. It may be appropriate in some situations. It may be inappropriate in some situations. However, research and just experience has shown that the more you bring into that new unit, when I mean the more positivity, so the more love, the more kindness, the more patience, the more good memories from the past, it will help in blending, the new family. And in summary, I like to say merging two families into one blended family is never an easy task. It requires patience, commitment, diligence, mutual respect, and a whole lot of grace for every member of the family to feel truly a part of the new family unit that's been created. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Am I frozen?
No.
Right.
So we can just see your logo. Maybe we should see your face so that you're ready to take questions.
Oh, apologies. I didn't realize. I thought, so you didn't see my face all this while?
No, not at all.
Oh,
Just your.
wow. Sorry about that.
Okay. So let's start taking questions from the house. Do we have some questions for our sister? I have a question.
Tell me.
If there's a couple that have just come together
Mm-hmm.
and the woman is the one that has come with the children, but she's the kind of person that doesn't discipline her children per se. She pampers them. But then she's now married a man that is a disciplinarian. What happens with the discipline of the children?
Right. That's a very good question. Thank you very much. Now remember that the essence of discipline is to improve the children, right? Just to refine them and to help them become better, right? I mean, because what is the goal? What is the objective of the discipline? Is it because you feel like this is nonsense and you won't tolerate this as an individual, or this is not good for the child? The child should not be doing this, right? Long term, this is detrimental to the development of the child. So when you know that it is about the child's development, growth, and improvement, we can go on and on. The approach is very important. You do not want to discipline the child, and in the process end up causing more harm than good. Remember that their mom, like you rightly, like you shared, is not the disciplinarian. She pampers them, so they're used to a mom pampering them, right? And mommy gets married to this man who's the disciplinarian. So how do you think the children will receive that? Not very well, right? Now, of course, I'm not saying because the children would not receive it well, the children should go on discipline, because again, that is part of coming together. You help each other become better, and there's more balance in the relationship. So in that situation, my recommendation would be the man can discipline the children, right? And he definitely should discipline the children, but his approach is very important, right? Considering the fact that the wife he got married to is one that pampered her children, right? So it's going to help her to, first of all, it has to help her to see the need to discipline them and what they're not doing right. It's going to help her to communicate that to her in her own way, right? Whether she's pampering them through it, but she's communicating it to them. And he's going to have to find a way, to get to the children as well, right? Gently. He has to ease it. He has to ease himself into the process, right? Because if he comes, with a hard stance, then it may be taken off, it may be received wrongly, negatively, and that will put pressure on the relationship, the children, and it's be counterproductive.
Okay. Thank you very much. We have a question from someone, from Chinedu. She says, what if you observe that the child is manipulative and lies, and their parent believes their child? What's your recommendation?
Okay. I said earlier that we have to be very intentional with communicating. The honest truth is, the parents in every situation has a natural tendency, right, to take to the side of the child, right? It's natural. You're going to have to be, as an adult, you're going to have to work on yourself, right? To make sure that you are not looking at things only from your child's perspective, right? And you're being objective about the situation. It will take patience. It will take dialogue. It will take investigation. It will take communication, right? But if a child is found to be lying, then we're going to have to deal with it, right? The parents in the situation, first of all, parent A, the biological parent, cannot just take everything the child says as law, right? Okay, this is my child. I've had this child for the past 15 years. She doesn't lie. He doesn't lie. I believe her. You're lying. No, right? And the other parents coming into the situation as well cannot just say, your child is a liar. He's horrible. She's horrible, right? In a blended family situation, you're going to have to come to the table and discuss it. Put all the facts and, evidences on the table, right? Investigate, patiently communicate through it, and come to an agreement. That is what I would say.
Thank you. Do we have some more questions from the house? Do we have any hands up about the art of blending families? You can raise your hand and we'll take your question. You can type in the chat if you are unable to speak where you are. Or any comments that you want to add to what has been said already. Or is there anyone in a blended family situation that wants to share more light on one or more of their experiences?
Okay, there's a question here. How do you deal with manipulative grandparents? Okay, my response to that will be, grandparents play such an important role. Some active, some not active, but your grandparents would always be a part of, the family. So we can't get rid of them, can we? Except they go to be with the Lord. Honestly, boundaries have to be set. That's the first thing I would say, right? We have to set, if you find yourself in that kind of situation, the couple have to talk about it, and set boundaries and agree on those boundaries, and communicate it, not necessarily directly, but in situations where it needs to be communicated directly, to do. But again, majority of us on this call are Africans, Black people, so be gentle with that. But I would say what you do is probably a better way of communicating these boundaries, right? What you permit and what you do not permit. But I mean, boundaries are very important. You're going to have to set boundaries and stick to them. And of course, you co-create those boundaries. Very, very important, so that the two parties are in agreement and alignment. Very important.
Thank you so much for sharing with us. It's been such an enlightening session. I'm sure we've all learned a lot, and we are going from here a lot more informed and prepared to face the future for those that are not married and might be getting into blended families. Do we have any more questions from the house? Any more questions? Anyone? Before we call it a day, let's take the questions now. Any questions on your mind about the art of blending families? What do you say to people that say, I can never date somebody with a child above a certain age? What do you say to people like that? It's usually about that 5-year-old, 8-year-old mark.
Okay, my first question to them would be, what are they worried about, and why are they saying that? Probably from somebody else's experience, or what they have seen, not necessarily what they have, been through themselves. The beauty of a blended family is there's more opportunity to love, there's more opportunity to give, there's more opportunity to receive, right? And there's more opportunity to invest. So I would say embrace it, right? If that is, something that the factor or the only thing that is making you reconsider a prospective marriage or union or relationship, then look at it from the positive standpoint. Even with your own biological child, I mean, challenges can come up that you didn't expect or you didn't envisage. So it's, first of all, starting out with a positive mindset. For me, it's always look at it as an opportunity to give, an opportunity to share, an opportunity to sow love. So yeah, there is no age that is, that every age comes with its own challenges and peculiarities. So younger people will say, oh, they're so adorable. I mean, age 1 to 5, I mean, what kind of stress can a child give you? And then you go into the teenage years and they say, oh, wow, teenagers can be problematic. And you consider somebody who has a grown child or grown children, and some other people will say, oh, they're already grown, you can't really develop a bond with them anymore at that stage, at that age, because I mean the formative years are gone, and you can't they probably won't see you as their mom or dad anymore, because I mean they're already grown adults. And you have situations where the child is already an adult and they're, they have a mind of their own and they're challenging everything. So I mean, there's no stage that doesn't have its own comma. And like with biological children as well, every stage of development comes with its own, its own interesting seasons. So embrace it. It's my recommendation. and get all the support and help that you need, and it's all available.
Thank you very much.
Right.
So there's a question for you and a compliment about your hair. How about an ex that refuses to disappear and insists on being active on the scene?
Okay.
I'm not sure why we need the ex to disappear, because if the ex is one of the parents, then
Absolutely. And I also wanted to clarify that, there's a difference between the marriage relationship and the parent relationship. So because you're no longer married to somebody, shouldn't deprive them of the opportunity to be a parent. So co-parenting is probably what would happen in this situation, or what should be happening in this situation. But again, in a co-parenting situation, the boundaries have to be well defined, right? The roles and responsibilities have to be well defined. Again, in a traditional situation, some things are just, it's sort of natural, automatic. In a blended family situation or in a co-parenting family situation, things have to be well defined. We cannot assume things because now you have other people in the situation in the mix. So things have to be well defined, clearly defined, and there has to be consideration for all parties, right? So you see, there's more to consider. There's more to deal with in a blended family situation, but communication, very key. Boundaries, very key. Yeah.
okay. Thank you very much.
Yeah.
Thank you very much to our dear sister Tolani. That has been a great, great session, and I'm sure we've all learned a lot from that session. For those of you that have joined us and are new, this is the Link family. We're about building healthy relationships or having healthier relationships. It's open to everyone age 16 and above. So we have lots of young people, adults, grandparents, and the likes, and we share experiences. We have an online WhatsApp group. It's still open if you're interested in joining. And there's a YouTube channel with lots of resources. It's called Temitope Prison Child. You can check that out as well. And get more resources regarding fertility, parenting, and relationships on the channel, as well as lots of prayer meetings. We usually alternate a prayer meeting with a discussion. So the next discussion about blended families is going to be in 2 weeks from now. Next week, we're going to have a prayer meeting, and you're welcome to join us. We pray, we thank God, we pray about things that concern us and things that concern you, and you're free to raise your prayer points with us, and we'll pray together. So that's it that we're going to be having today. Our meetings are usually an hour long, so we are rounding up about now. And we have our motto, and our motto is, I live in love, I stay in peace, I shine my light, I use my power. So let's unmute ourselves and say that all together before we call it a day.
Stay in love.
I live in love.
I live in
I
love.
stay in peace.
I stay in peace. I shine my
I
light.
shine my light and I use
I
my
use my
power.
power. So help
So
me.
help me God.
And thank you,